Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today, we're going to be doing some Kristaps Porzingis trades. Now, I'm not actually doing these trades live. I have screenshots pulled up that I'm going to be sharing with you today. And the reason I'm not doing it live is because there's a lot of moving pieces. I just feel much more confident in being able to pull up the screenshots here rather than put all the information in separately. Now, before we start, I want to make sure this is very clear. So a little disclaimer popping up right here. This is not me saying that these should happen. These are just me throwing out ideas and seeing what sticks. I'm just throwing as many ideas at the wall as possible. Not all of them are good. Not all of them are bad. Not all of them should happen. Not all of them should even be in consideration. I just feel like it's fun to think about this, fun to throw as many possibilities out there and just see how people react. So if you do like something that you see here, feel free to leave a comment about it or go follow me on Twitter. Go message me on Twitter about it at Sam_Teets. That's TEETS 33 on Twitter. Or just, like the video. And if you find something you don't like, also you can throw a comment out there as well. It's not a big deal. I would just like to hear your opinion on some of these ideas. And again, not all of these are good ideas. Some of them are bad. I just want to throw as much out there as possible, see what I can get from it. So the first deal I have here is going to be a controversial one. So it surrounds, two controversial players, Kristaps Porzingis, obviously, and Andrew Wiggins. Now, Wiggins actually had a very good year for the Golden State Warriors this season. I think it really revives some of his value. He's never going to be the superstar people envisioned he would be when he was the number one overall pick in the draft, but he was much better defensively this year than I think we've given him credit for in the past. In the offense, there's still some inconsistencies. Night to night, you never really know what you're going to get from him on that end, but defensively, if you can come to rely on him as a defensive piece, then putting him out there and having that little bit of that inconsistent offensive performance isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially when you already have Kristaps Porzingis coming out in the playoffs and not performing consistently on a nightly basis. At that point, switching him for Wiggins, you get more versatile defensively, because I know Kristaps Porzingis gives you rim protection, but he didn't really do that much this year. So Wiggins gives you a little bit more of a versatile player on the defensive end. And you can still get shots from him. You can still make shots. You can still have 30-point games. It's not like you can't do that. It's just that it's not consistent. So in this deal, I think the big controversy might be how will Wiggins fit alongside someone like Luka Doncic, who has the ball so much, and two, the compensation. Which again, this is another little disclaimer: the compensation is not correct for all these trades. I did these trades over a week ago. I'm looking back, I don't like all of them. I don't like how they're formatted, and I think that I might have messed up on the compensation a little bit. So I will alter that, and I'll tell you when I'll alter it throughout the video. But right now, there's a second-round pick, and Kristaps Porzingis going to the Golden State Warriors for Andrew Wiggins. And Kristaps Porzingis actually probably fits the system they want to run in Golden State. If he's the bigger guy, if he's their, let's say they're 5, he's just going to be a stretch 5 on offense. You have Draymond Green going out there. He wants to run sort of the point in transition. You have Steph Curry, obviously, who can do basically whatever he wants. He can just run all over the court, get open Clay, he can spot up. But now you can put Porzingis on the perimeter as well, because I believe he's a 40% three-point shooter either this year or last year, but he's cracked that barrier before, and you feel very confident in him being outside. So I think that someone like Kristaps Porzingis fits the offense they want there, more so than someone like James Wiseman would even. So a guy like Porzingis could fit in Golden State. The fit for Wiggins in Dallas is probably not as clear. That's probably the biggest issue with this trade. Another one I want to talk about, this is a little more complicated for a lot of reasons. a sign and trade for Spencer Dinwiddie. So what does Dinwiddie give you? Well, you already have a good backup point guard in Jalen Brunson, probably one of the best backup point guards in the league, who could probably start on multiple teams. But Dinwiddie gives you shot creation. He gives you the ability to get his own shot. He just gives you a very versatile player who can play either shooting guard or point guard, depending on what you really need at that point in time. So a guy like Dinwiddie is going to be very sought after probably this year, even despite missing most of the season. You could see him get that kind of second-level contract or maybe third-level kind of contract where he's getting in the range of 25 to 26 million a year, maybe even peaking around 28 million. I don't really know what his value is going to look like after missing so much time. The big concern here in this deal, if you're in the Mavericks, would be taking on the DeAndre Jordan contract, because that's for 2 years. As it is with the Luka extension coming up, you're going to be squeezed for cap space. Do you really want to give that kind of deal to DeAndre Jordan or do you really want to pay that kind of money when you've had him here in Dallas before? And when you know he's declined so much to the point that he wasn't really even playing for Brooklyn down the stretch in the season. So at what point do you feel like you're just not capable of taking on that deal? Now, maybe You remove DeAndre Jordan, maybe you remove Trey Burke from the situation, and it's Dinwiddie for Porzingis straight up or something like that. Or maybe you're sending a second-round pick with Porzingis for Dinwiddie, whoever knows. So maybe just cut DeAndre Jordan out of the situation, and it makes it much more clear. I still think the Mavericks, because they're losing a bunch of centers, losing a bunch of big men potentially this offseason with their contracts and free agency, I still think there's a chance they might want to try to go out and get someone like that, a more veteran player. But 2 years left on his deal for DeAndre Jordan, and $9.8 million next year, that's probably way too much to be paying him at this point in his career, especially considering what he's accomplished recently. He seems more like a vet minimum guy at this point. So maybe you remove him from the deal entirely. Maybe take Trey Burke out or throw Trey Burke in. It really doesn't matter, I think, in the situation when you're getting Dinwiddie in return. And see how it goes. Because I do think getting Dinwiddie would be huge for Dallas to get another playmaker out there. And another guy who can be a potential 20 point per game scorer while still getting 5 or 6 assists per game. So that's an interesting trade. I don't really know if it's going to happen or not. Nets obviously performed fairly well this year without Dinwiddie, but the injuries were a concern. They'll probably continue to be a concern in the future for the Nets. In this situation, they do get some good height on the inside. They get a stretch 5 or stretch 4, depending on how you look at them. I think a lot of teams like that, a lot of teams in the NBA, basically every team in the NBA at this point, wants a stretch 4 or stretch 5. So I think that could help the Nets out, especially with, I think Jeff Green is going to be a free agent too, so you're going to need some more interior help. Another trade up here, and this one would be very interesting because it's between two franchises that have struggled recently, although Dallas is obviously climbing out of the pit, while Sacramento Kings have done nothing to really improve their circumstances. They brought in some talented players. De'Aaron Fox, obviously, who should be untouchable for them. Buddy Hield has been good, but has not really contributed to them winning very much. He's had great games here and there, but really feels kind of stagnant in Sacramento. And Marvin Bagley, who's just been underdeveloped. He has all the athletic traits, but he's not built his game up. He's not been healthy enough at points in time, so there's been a lot of struggles with him. There's still a lot of potential there. It's just a question of, will the right person bring it out of him, or is he just going to go down the road of a Jabari Parker type player? And I bring that up mainly because they both went to Duke. That's mainly why. But in this situation, you get rid of Josh Richardson, who wasn't playing much for Dallas down the stretch because of his inability to shoot from deep. And his defense has always been solid, but it's not been great. Porzingis, you obviously have to move from this trade because that's the whole point of the video. You get in exchange Buddy Hield and developmental guy Marvin Bagley, who will have probably a 1 year left because you'll pick the team option up here, obviously, for this deal to happen. And he will have 1 year left on his contract, and you get to go from there. Josh Richardson, he's got a player option for about $11.6 million. I don't see a world in where he turns that down because he's not going to get more than that in free agency, especially after what happened late in the season. Previously, at different seasons, I believe he could have been worth more than that. Back when he was playing for the 76ers, his contract was very friendly. It was a very nice deal. But we're at a point in his career right now where I don't know where he fits in the modern NBA landscape, so I think taking that player option, taking that secure path, would be a good move for him. Now, who's really benefiting in this situation? I think it's kind of a deal where it's more of a Buddy Hield for Kristaps Porzingis type deal, and you also get to move on from that Josh Richardson contract. In reality, why would you have Richardson on the roster if you feel like he's going to potentially hold you back from doing what you want to do? So you get rid of a guy in Richardson who's more of a one-dimensional or not as versatile shooting guard as you want. Bring in a Buddy Hield, who's one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA, and you ship off Kristaps Porzingis, who you know is unhappy to some extent and hasn't really fit with Luka Doncic so far, and bring in a development guy, Marvin Bagley, who, if he doesn't work out, he's gone after a year. He's done. So you get to open up that cap space moving forward in the future. So that's kind of what you're doing here. You're trying to get Buddy Hield to get that complementary piece who can shoot from outside, maybe replace Tim Hardaway Jr. if he leaves in free agency, and you get a guy Bagley who could be a very good player, or he could, be gone in a year. But even if he's just gone in a year, it opens up some cap space, and you do get a guy in Buddy Hield who's under contract for a while, much cheaper than someone like Kristaps Porzingis, and much more effective than someone like Josh Richardson. All right, let me find another one that I want to talk about. Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry is an interesting player. I think people have underrated him for a long time considering everything he does for Toronto, everything he does for a team. Now, obviously, this has to be a signed trade because Lowry is a free agent. I think he'll get probably a 3-year deal, maybe a 4-year deal. I don't know if I feel comfortable at his age giving him a 4-year contract. But why would you want to bring Kyle Lowry into Dallas, when you have Jalen Brunson, when you have Luka Doncic? It's a good question. And I don't really know the answer. I think you have to try to bring in playmakers. You have to try to surround Luka and his team and some of the younger guys on this core with players who can set them up to win. And Kyle Lowry, to me, is a player who's great for the locker room. He's a great leader, obviously a tremendous veteran presence, but he also knows how to do just a little bit of everything on the court. He's the jack of all trades master of none. He can give you outside shooting. He can give you playmaking. He can give you defensive hustle. He'll take charges unlike most players in the league, and he'll actually be effective in drawing them. He won't get called for blocking fouls. So I think there's a lot that Kyle Lowry gives you. It's just a question of, can you find a spot for him in the rotation? Because you can't really play him as a traditional shooting guard. You could move Luka to that spot, but do you really want to take Luka off the ball? And or you could run Lowry where you stagger the minutes and run him more with the second unit, but then you're kind of stunting Brunson's growth and development. So it's a tough question here. Because Lowry's a good enough player, he should be able to fit anywhere, especially considering the kind of player he is. But in this situation, you don't want to give up too much because you're going to have to give up more than just Kristaps Porzingis to get Kyle Lowry. Despite the age difference, Porzingis' value is at probably an all-time low. And Kyle Lowry's is maybe not an all-time high, I would say, but it's close to the peak right now. So you're going to have to give up a significant amount to get to Kyle Lowry. And again, with the fits, will it work? I don't think so. So I don't think this deal is even on the table for Dallas. But it would be a cool thing to bring in someone like Kyle Lowry to maybe mentor Luka a little bit more. Because I know there have been some concerns about, I don't want to say maturity, but about leadership within that locker room so far. And I know people have shot them down from within the organization, but there have been some concerns raised. And usually there's a middle ground, that's correct, in these kind of situations. I think Kyle Lowry would stabilize everything in the locker room and really, make sure that this team is headed in the right direction, make sure the young players get the mentoring they need. From one big stretch forward to another, Kevin Love. So Kevin Love is obviously past his prime, even though he's going to be on Team USA this summer, playing in the Olympics. I think Kevin Love, it's unfortunate because we don't really know what Kevin Love is at this point. Because he's been trapped in Cleveland, because he's been so unhappy, because Colin Sexton's been on the ball so much, we really don't know what Kevin Love is capable of. And we'll find out probably this summer through the Olympics. It'll be very interesting to see how that works out and how he responds to being one of the elder statesmen on that team. I still think there's a world where Kevin Love can be a contributor, and he knows how to contribute from being a stretch four. He can do it, and he can play a little bit inside. We saw it in his early days. I think he'd be a better fit alongside Luka because he's used to it, playing with guys like LeBron or even someone like Colin Sexton who's on ball so much. So Kevin Love would be a better fit if you're talking about you just bringing in another stretch four guy, another guy who's got some size, some interior impact. Obviously not to the extent of Kristaps Porzingis, especially on defense, but I still think there's a world where Kevin Love is maybe even more offensively efficient than Kristaps Porzingis because he's so used to this role. Now, the compensation would be a little bit weird because there's a universe where Dallas says, hey, Kristaps Porzingis is so much younger. Why would we give up anything to get Kevin Love? We need something in return, which is what I think would be the most likely scenario where Cleveland goes out and sends something to Dallas in return. Now, I know Cleveland's been shopping Colin Sexton supposedly. It does not make sense for Dallas to trade for him because they have Luka. And Luka's already on ball so much. Colin Sexton's basically player who would be on ball even more than Luka, and that doesn't make sense at all. But I do see a world where maybe Cleveland sends a draft pick to Dallas to get Kristaps Porzingis and try to revamp this group. They have some young pieces. Darius Garland's obviously there as well. But I really don't know what Cleveland's doing. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. They have such a mix of pieces right now. And they're going to try to retain Jarrett Allen in free agency, but I don't know if they'll be capable of doing it because maybe he wants to go play for an organization that's going to win quicker than Cleveland. So we'll see how it plays out. Cleveland's just a very hard team to judge. I could see Kevin Love working alongside Luka pretty well, which is why I brought this trade up. Let's see what's next. I'm trying to pick good ones because I have some bad ones here too. I got some really bad ideas that I want to share with you, but I wanted to start with the good ones first, or at least the better ones. All right, CJ McCollum. Now, the problem here immediately is going to be the draft picks because I believe that there will be more than just 2 second-round picks headed to Portland in this kind of trade. I think you'll see at least 1 first-round pick, which is difficult because I believe Dallas doesn't have their first-rounder this year. But I think you'll see Kristaps Porzingis, a first-round pick, at least one first-round pick, and 2 second-round picks will go in this trade. So there's now a first-round pick added here, but there should be, because I don't believe this is enough value to equal CJ McCollum. Because Porzingis is at the low point. If this had been after Porzingis' All-Star season, maybe I could see a deal like this working out, but it's not. It's been removed quite a bit from that. We're removed from that point, and Porzingis is coming off a low point in his career where he just was not a great contributor in the playoffs, and you can't do that at a high level when your team needs you the most. It's going to be very difficult to sell you as a guy equivalent to someone like CJ McCollum, who's been a professional second option, who's been playing effectively as a second option, unlike Porzingis. And again, you bring McCollum, great outside shooter, gives you a little something defensively at points. He can play defense well, possession to possession, but it's never consistent. I like adding CJ McCollum here because he goes from being one really good point guard to another really good point guard here. Consider that. So if that's what you list Luka as moving forward, I like the combination of McCollum and Luka. I just have to wonder if that would be a little bit of a change for Luka to work with a guard at that level that could also create his own shots and get his own opportunities. Someone like McCollum might need the ball a little bit more than someone like Porzingis, but again, Porzingis was upset with not getting the ball as much as he wanted to in Dallas to begin with, so it'll be very interesting to see how that dynamic works out. But McCollum has experience playing alongside another star and working out fairly well. The only thing I would change in the situation is, of course, the draft picks. But it might not work because if Porzingis was upset with how much Luka had the ball in Dallas, will he be able to accept Lillard, who's also an established superstar, being the face of the team in Portland? It's something Porzingis will have to get over because right now he's not good enough to be the face of a franchise. There's another Portland trade I want to talk about very briefly here. Nurkic has said that he's a little bit, not uncomfortable, but a little bit unhappy in Portland right now. And of course, he said if they trade Dame, they have to trade him as well because he will want out. In this situation, I don't know if we're doing this deal with the assumption that Portland's just blowing everything up, or we're doing this deal in the assumption that Portland might want to try to put a Band-Aid on this for one more year and see how it goes before blowing everything up. But it certainly feels like we're headed towards the blow-up situation here if you put McCollum and Nurkic in this deal for Kristaps Porzingis, Josh Richardson. Again, the compensation is wrong here. It should be Porzingis, Richardson, at least one first-round pick. I'm leaning more towards 2, honestly, looking at it now, and maybe a second round as well. So it should be Porzingis, Richardson, first rounder, and probably a second rounder as well from going from Dallas to Portland in exchange for McCollum and Nurkic. Nurkic is a quality center when he's healthy. There's been some injury concerns here and there with him. And McCollum, we've already talked about. He can create his own shot. Sometimes he can get outside. There's a lot of things to like about him on the offensive end. Some stuff defensively, but not to a notable extent. And again, for Dallas, the situation helps out here because you get rid of the Josh Richardson contract. You don't have to deal with that. You get probably a better definitely a better shooting guard in CJ McCollum. And the drop from Porzingis to Nurkic is going to be significant in the roles they play on the offense, but it's not going to be significant to me in terms of maybe the offensive impact they have because Porzingis has struggled at points. And because he has not meshed well with Luka, you just have to try to change things up for both these teams maybe and hit the reset button a little bit for Portland. But again, I don't like this deal. I don't like this deal unless Portland's hitting the reset button entirely and just blowing everything up. But I don't see that happening this summer. So I don't believe this is actually going to happen. I just don't want to put this out there because I don't see Portland trying to blow this up until at least next year if things go poorly. All right, let's do a bad trade. Or maybe not a bad trade, just an interesting one. Gordon Hayward for Kristaps Porzingis. Now, Hayward, injuries continue to be a concern with him. But when he's healthy this year, he was good. I mean, he's gotten almost all the way back to where he was, in my opinion, with Utah and before the injury in Boston. Because for years afterwards, maybe the first, how many years has it been since the Boston injury? 2 or 3? Maybe 4 even at this point? It feels like it's been a while, but you could tell the season immediately after the injury, and even the year after that, he was not ever going to figure it out in Boston. It just wasn't happening. But he goes down to Charlotte, and he's performing at not an all-star level right now, but he's at a very high level. I think this guy is a good number 2 option as it is. And I think that he would add some new variables to Dallas. If Porzingis is just at the point where his relationship with Luka is just not going to be repaired, if he just wants out to go somewhere new, you put him on a young Charlotte Hornets team. He's going to be the center. He's going to be a stretch 5. He's going to be working with LaMelo Ball and Terry Rozier and a bunch of other young players there, Bridges as well. It's just a question of, is he going to be a positive influence in the young locker room? If not, then you probably don't make the deal. Flip side, you feel like someone like Gordon Hayward can work with someone like Luka Doncic. I think it could work. I don't see why it wouldn't work. But I know that Gordon Hayward is not just going to be a spot-up 3-point shooter, so he's going to need the ball at some points in the game. I don't know. I think there's something here. Maybe if you added in more pieces in compensation, it would really flush his deal out. But I think there's something. There's at least something here to be excited about if you made this trade. I think we have just one more. No, we have 2 more. All right, so one it will be an absolute reach and won't happen, and one that's going to be horrible. Trading for Brandon Ingram. Now, why would this happen? I have no idea. I have no idea why the Pelicans would want to do this. The only reason I could think of is that it just doesn't work between Ingram and Zion, or some kind of feud or something like that, where Ingram demands out. That's the only way I could ever see the Pelicans trading Brandon Ingram, who's been a great scorer, has not really figured it out in defense, but obviously is a tremendously efficient and consistent offensive presence. Unlike Kristaps Porzingis as of late, Dallas would have to give a lot to get Brandon Ingram in my mind. Ingram's worth, and this is kind of what I would have expected the CJ McCollum deal to be like. This is probably what it should have been like. 2 firsts and a second rounder plus Porzingis for Brandon Ingram. That's the difference right now between their value and talent within the league as things stand. Now, would the Pelicans ever accept this deal? I really don't know. It would have to be an internal issue. Like I said, there would have to be something going on between Ingram and Zion or Alonzo or something like that to create a situation where Ingram ends up getting traded out of New Orleans for a lesser player. And the final deal, which I want to state will not happen, there's no way, but if Houston decides just to blow everything up and just to totally throw their hands up and go full process mode, to use the Philadelphia 76ers term, this would be how they would do it. Potentially. Get someone like Kristaps Porzingis in, pair him with John Wall, and you send out Christian Wood and Eric Gordon. Now, looking at this deal, it's not good either. It's not right. It should probably be 2 first-rounders and a second-rounder, plus Porzingis heading out of Dallas to Houston, because Christian Wood's trending in such a positive direction, and he's on a friendly contract. The Eric Gordon deal, I'm not a huge fan of, if I'm being honest. He's been a bit of a roller coaster player as of late, so I'm not really jumping on board with that. But like I said, if Tim Hardaway leaves in free agency, which it sounds like he might because of how the salary cap's going to be working in Dallas, once Luka signs his extension, if he's gone, someone like Eric Gordon might be able to fill that void a little bit. Christian Wood, though, is the player to be excited about here if he were at Dallas. Again, I don't see this happening because he's an exciting player. He's an exciting young player. And the Rockets are just desperate for excitement. They're desperate for something along that line right now because they have an aging John Wall and they have aging players all around him. Christian Wood is probably going to be the future of that franchise. I just don't know how Houston ever gets to a point where they have him on a cap-friendly deal and things are just working out around him. I just don't see that happening in the next 2 or 3 years, which is why I put this trade together, because I don't see Houston being a competitive team for the next 2 or 3 years. James Harden asking out last year really hurt them. It could take a while for them to rebuild. I don't even know if they'll have the same coach, honestly, by the time they're actually competitive again. So that's why I put this together. Just kind of, put it out there if the Rockets decide to blow things up. Obviously not going to trade for John Wall. Dallas would make no sense for them to trade for John Wall. But that would be the other player that the Rockets would probably be trying to deal if they had a chance. But anyway, that's it. That's all my good, maybe not so good, and just horrible trade options I put together for Kristaps Porzingis. I hope you liked the video. There are some other trade options coming out here. I've done a video in the past for Ben Simmons already. I will probably be doing one for – actually, let me check. Who else do I have scheduled here? I've got Damian Lillard. I've got Colin Sexton. I'm going to do some trades for the Warriors. So I'm going to have a lot of NBA trade content coming out. So please subscribe to the channel. Maybe hit the like button. Maybe hit the dislike button if you didn't like any of the trades I put together here. But either way, I appreciate you giving me your time, and I'll see you all in the next video.